Long before the modern nations of Europe existed, the cold northern lands shaped a people of extraordinary toughness and ambition. These lands, known today as Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, were harsh, rocky, and unforgiving. Winters were long and brutal, summers were short, and survival demanded strength, skill, and courage. From this environment emerged the people we now call the Vikings. The word Viking did not originally describe a nation or a race. Instead, it referred to an activity going on an expedition by sea, often for trade, exploration, or war. Not all Scandinavians were Vikings, but those who sailed out seeking fortune earned that name. The Viking Age officially began around the year 793 AD. This date marks a single, shocking event that echoed across Christian Europe. On a quiet island off the coast of England stood the monastery of Lindisfarne. It was a holy place, home to monks who lived in prayer and isolation. One morning, dragon-prowed ships appeared suddenly on the horizon. Warriors leapt ashore, armed with axes, swords, and shields. They attacked swiftly, killing monks and looting sacred treasures. The raid on Lindisfarne horrified the Christian world. Church records describe the Vikings as demons sent by God as punishment. From that moment, fear of the Northmen spread rapidly across Europe. But the Vikings were not driven by mindless violence alone. Scandinavia could not easily support a growing population. Farms were small, soil was thin, and food was often scarce. Young men sought wealth and land beyond their homeland. The Vikings were master shipbuilders, unmatched in their time. Their longships were fast, flexible, and capable of ocean voyages. They could sail across open seas or navigate shallow rivers. This gave the Vikings access to places no enemy expected. Viking society was structured but surprisingly complex. At the top stood kings and powerful chieftains. Below them were free farmers known as carls. At the bottom were thralls, or slaves, captured in raids or born into servitude. Despite this hierarchy, Viking society valued personal honor deeply. A man's reputation was everything. Cowardice brought shame not only to the individual, but to the entire family. Courage, loyalty, and strength were praised above all else. Women in Viking society held more rights than many of their European counterparts. They could own property, request divorce, and manage farms. Some women even joined voyages as settlers and explorers. Religion played a central role in Viking life. The Vikings worshipped many gods, each representing forces of nature and human life. Odin was the god of wisdom, war, and death. Thor was the protector of humanity, wielding his mighty hammer. Frey and Freya governed fertility, prosperity, and love. The Vikings believed in fate, which they called Word. They believed destiny was woven by powerful beings called the Norns. Death in battle was considered the most honorable end. Warriors slain bravely were believed to be chosen for Valhalla. Valhalla was Odin's great hall in the afterlife. There, warriors would feast, fight, and prepare for the final battle of Ragnarok. This belief made Vikings fearless in combat. They did not fear death. They welcomed glory. But not all Vikings were raiders. Many were traders who traveled vast distances. Viking trade routes stretched from North America to the Middle East. They traded furs, amber, weapons, and slaves. In return, they received silver, silk, spices, and exotic goods. The Viking world was far more connected than most people imagine. Their ships carried ideas, cultures, and technology across continents. As the Viking Age unfolded, raids became larger and more organized. What began as quick coastal attacks turned into full-scale invasions. Entire armies crossed the seas. Kings rose who would shape history forever. The age of exploration, conquest, and legend had only just begun, and the world would never be the same again. As Viking raids increased, so did the fear they inspired across Europe. What once seemed like isolated attacks soon revealed a deeper pattern. The Vikings were learning, adapting, and organizing. They were no longer just raiders striking quickly and disappearing. They were becoming a military force capable of sustained warfare. At the heart of Viking success was their mastery of weapons and combat. Every Viking warrior was trained from a young age to fight. Boys learned to wield axes, spears, and shields as part of daily life. Combat was not a profession alone. It was a cultural expectation. The most iconic Viking weapon was the axe. Axes were affordable, versatile, and devastating in close combat. Some axes were small and light, perfect for quick strikes. Others were large, two-handed weapons designed to break shields and armor. Swords were prized possessions among Vikings. They were expensive and often passed down through generations. A Viking sword was not just a weapon, but a symbol of status. Many swords were named, believed to possess spirits or special power. Spears were the most common weapon on the battlefield. They could be thrown from a distance or used in tight formations. The spear was also sacred to Odin, the god of war. Viking shields were round, wooden, and reinforced with iron bosses. They were painted in bold colors and patterns. Shields were not only defensive tools, but active weapons. Warriors punched, shoved, and trapped enemies using their shields. Armor was rare and expensive. Most Vikings fought without chainmail or helmets. Protection relied on skill, movement, and teamwork. Despite popular myths, Viking helmets did not have horns. Horned helmets were a later invention, created by artists centuries later. In battle, Vikings often fought in shield walls. This formation involved overlapping shields to create a solid barrier. It required discipline, trust, and coordination. Shield walls turned individual warriors into a single unstoppable force. When two shield walls collided, the fighting was brutal and chaotic. Axes hacked, spears thrust, and shields splintered under pressure. Victory often went to the side that held formation the longest. Among Viking warriors, few were as feared as the berserkers. Berserkers were elite fighters who entered a trance-like state in battle. They were said to feel no pain and fear no death. Their name may come from wearing bear or wolf pelts. Before battle, berserkers worked themselves into a frenzy. They howled, bit their shields, and shouted prayers to Odin. Enemies believed berserkers were possessed by spirits or gods. Whether myth or reality, the reputation alone broke enemy morale. As Viking tactics evolved, so did their ambitions. Small raids brought quick wealth but limited rewards. Larger forces could conquer entire regions. This shift led to the formation of massive Viking armies. The most famous of these was the Great Heathen Army. In the year 865 AD, this army landed in England. Unlike earlier raids, this force did not come to loot and leave, it came to conquer and stay. The Great Heathen Army was led by legendary figures. Among them were sons of the famous Ragnar Lothbrok. Ragnar was a semi-legendary Viking hero known for daring raids. According to sagas, he was captured and killed by the English King Aella. His sons swore revenge. The Great Heathen Army swept across Anglo-Saxon kingdoms. One by one, English kings were defeated or killed. Monasteries, towns, and strongholds fell to Viking control. Only the Kingdom of Wessex resisted successfully. Its king, Alfred the Great, would become a legendary opponent. For years, Vikings ruled large parts of England. This region became known as the Danelaw. Here, Viking laws, customs, and language shaped daily life. Norse words entered the English language permanently. Even today, English place names reflect Viking influence. The Viking presence was not limited to England. They attacked Ireland, Scotland, and Wales repeatedly. In Ireland, Vikings founded major cities like Dublin. These cities became powerful trade centers. Vikings also sailed south along the rivers of Europe. They reached France, Spain, and even the Mediterranean. In 911 AD, a Viking leader named Rollo was granted land in France. This land became known as Normandy. Rollo's descendants would later conquer England themselves. The Vikings were no longer outsiders. They were becoming rulers, settlers, and kings. Their transformation was reshaping Europe. But their greatest journeys still lay ahead. Beyond the known world, across open oceans, new lands waited, and the Vikings were already preparing to find them. While Viking raids and armies struck fear across Europe, Many Vikings were driven by curiosity and adventure. The seas called to them as much as conquest or wealth. Longships allowed Vikings to explore farther than anyone had imagined. One of their first great achievements was the settlement of Iceland. In the late 9th century, groups of Vikings sailed west across the North Atlantic. Iceland was uninhabited but fertile and rich in resources. Vikings established farms, built longhouses, and created new communities. Life in Iceland was challenging, but freedom and opportunity drew settlers. From Iceland, the Vikings continued westward into Greenland. Greenland was harsher and colder, but still offered land and resources. Eric the Red, a daring Viking chieftain, led the first large group of settlers there. He had been exiled from Iceland for committing murder, but he turned exile into opportunity. Greenland became a thriving Norse colony for centuries. The Vikings did not stop there. Stories tell of a bold explorer named Leif Erikson, son of Eric the Red. Leif sailed even farther west, beyond Greenland, into lands unknown to Europe. He reached a place he called Vinland, believed to be in modern-day Newfoundland, Canada. Vinland offered abundant forests, rivers, and wildlife. Vikings could hunt, fish, and farm there during short summers. Leif's voyages are considered the first known European arrival in North America. Centuries before Columbus, Vikings had touched the shores of the New World. These journeys were not simple or safe. The North Atlantic was stormy and treacherous. Many ships were lost, crews drowned, or turned back by ice and wind. Yet the Vikings persevered, driven by curiosity and ambition. Settlements in Vinland were short-lived but left archaeological traces. Viking sagas and stories preserved the memory of these voyages. Life in distant lands required adaptation and skill. Vikings learned to survive winters, hunt local animals, and build durable homes. They farmed barley and rye and kept cattle, sheep, and goats. Trade remained essential. Vikings exchanged furs, ivory, and pelts for iron, wine, and luxury goods. Exploration was as much about opportunity as conquest. It expanded Viking influence, connecting them to lands far beyond Scandinavia. Even as they explored, the Viking culture thrived at home. Arts, poetry, and storytelling were central to their society. Skalds or poets recited tales of gods, heroes, and epic battles. These stories preserved history, culture, and morality. Runes, the Viking writing system, were carved on stones, wood, and metal. They marked graves, commemorated achievements, and communicated across distances. Vikings were both brutal warriors and skilled artisans. Ships were carved with intricate designs, often depicting dragons or serpents. Metalwork, jewelry, and wood carvings showed extraordinary craftsmanship. Even shields were decorated with patterns symbolizing protection and strength. Religion continued to guide their lives. Sacrifices were made to gain favor from the gods. Rituals marked births, marriages, and deaths. But Viking culture was not static. It evolved as they traveled. Contact with other civilizations brought new ideas and influences. In the East, Vikings traded with the Byzantine Empire and Islamic caliphates. They acquired coins, silks, and spices unknown in Scandinavia. These exchanges enriched Viking life and expanded their worldview. Despite the harshness of their environment, Vikings thrived through adaptability. From icy fjords to temperate European rivers, they left their mark everywhere. Their legacy survives not only in artifacts but in modern culture, language, and place names. Exploration, conquest, and settlement defined the Viking spirit. They were both feared and admired, brutal and clever, warriors and traders. By the 11th century, the Viking Age reached its height. Europe had been transformed by decades of raids, trade, and settlement. New kingdoms were formed, and old ones adapted to the Viking presence. Even as the age of raiding waned, Viking influence persisted. Their descendants became kings, merchants, and settlers across Europe. The legend of the Vikings endured in stories, sagas, and song. Their ships, symbols of freedom and power, remained the ultimate tool of exploration, and their courage, ambition, and determination continued to inspire generations. By the late 10th and early 11th centuries, the Viking Age began to change. The same fierce warriors who once struck fear across Europe were now settling permanently. Raiding became less frequent as European kingdoms grew stronger. Fortifications were built along coasts and rivers to resist attacks. Kings hired professional armies, making surprise raids more dangerous. Trade and settlement began to replace pure conquest as the focus of Viking society. Many Vikings embraced new opportunities in foreign lands. Land, marriage alliances, and political influence offered lasting wealth. Religion played a central role in the decline of traditional Viking practices. Christianity slowly spread through Scandinavia, often peacefully, sometimes by force. Missionaries traveled north, converting chieftains and kings. Conversion brought new laws, customs, and ideas. Old pagan rituals and sacrifices faded into history. Odin, Thor, and Freya remained in legend and saga but lost public worship. Baptism became the new rite of passage for Viking children. Churches were built, monasteries established, and Christian kings gained legitimacy. Even as they adopted Christianity, Vikings retained their cultural identity. They continued to build ships, trade, and explore distant lands. By the mid-11th century, many Vikings had become integrated into European kingdoms. The Normans of France, descended from Vikings, became one of the most powerful forces in Europe. In 1066, William the Conqueror, a Norman, invaded England. He established a new ruling dynasty, blending Viking and European traditions. Vikings left a permanent mark on language, law, and society. In England, many words, towns, and place names reflect Norse origins. Words like sky, window, and knife came from Old Norse. Cities like York, Derby, and Grimsby were founded or shaped by Vikings. In Ireland, Vikings founded Dublin, Limerick, and Waterford. In Normandy, their influence shaped the French legal system and military organization. Viking art and craftsmanship influenced European culture for centuries. Runestones, jewelry, and carved wood preserved their creativity and skill. Even in death, Vikings honored their traditions. Graves were often filled with weapons, tools, and personal items. Ship burials, reserved for chieftains and warriors, reflected status and belief in the afterlife. Some graves included entire ships, ritually buried and sometimes set ablaze. These practices demonstrate both their reverence for tradition and belief in an enduring legacy. The Viking Age eventually came to an end around 1066 AD. The Battle of Stamford Bridge marked the last major Viking invasion of England. King Harald Hardrada of Norway died in that battle, ending a century of large-scale raiding. After this, Vikings increasingly became settlers, traders, and integrated citizens. Their era of dominance gave way to new medieval powers across Europe. Yet the spirit of the Vikings persisted in exploration and adventure. Even after their military power waned, Norse sailors continued to explore distant lands. Their discoveries, from Iceland to Vinland, were proof of unmatched maritime skill. Viking sagas continued to be told for generations. Stories of Ragnar Lothbrok, Leif Erikson, and other heroes inspired both awe and legend. In modern times, Vikings remain a symbol of courage, resilience, and adventure. Movies, books, and television often depict them as both fierce warriors and bold explorers. Archaeology continues to uncover Viking settlements, tools, and artifacts. Each discovery sheds light on their daily life, beliefs, and travels. The Viking Age shaped not only Northern Europe, but the entire world. Trade routes, cultural exchange, and settlement patterns can still be traced today. Language, law, and folklore bear the marks of Norse influence. Vikings remind us that exploration, courage, and adaptation define human history. They were not merely raiders or plunderers, they were builders, settlers, and innovators. From icy fjords to distant shores, the Vikings left an enduring footprint on history. and the echoes of their age continue to inspire curiosity, adventure, and discovery. The Viking Age may have ended over 1,000 years ago, but its legacy is timeless. While Viking raids and exploration capture most of the imagination, daily life was a cornerstone of their society. Most Vikings were farmers, fishermen, and craftsmen, working hard to survive in harsh climates. Villages were small clusters of longhouses built from timber, stone, and turf. Each longhouse housed extended families, often including grandparents, children, and servants. Roofs were thatched, walls were thick, and central hearths provided warmth and cooking space. The hearth was the heart of the home, a gathering place for meals, storytelling, and warmth. Vikings slept on raised platforms or beds filled with straw and animal hides. Privacy was limited, but family bonds were strong and essential. Daily life was structured around work, seasons, and community responsibilities. Men handled plowing, hunting, and protection of the farm. Women managed household chores, weaving, cooking, and caring for children. They also played critical roles in managing livestock and farm production. Children learned skills early, imitating their parents' work and absorbing practical knowledge. Education was informal but effective, often through observation, storytelling, and practice. Vikings ate a simple but hearty diet. Bread, porridge, dairy, fish, and meat were staples. Seasonal vegetables and berries supplemented meals, while honey and herbs added flavor. Meat came from domesticated animals, wild game, or fish from rivers and seas. Preservation techniques like smoking, salting, and drying allowed food to last through winter. Feasting was an important social activity, often marking celebrations, victories, or religious occasions. Ale, mead, and fermented beverages were common drinks at these gatherings. Craftsmanship was essential in every household. Women spun wool and flax into clothing, while men shaped wood, iron, and bone into tools, weapons, and ornaments. Skillful artisans were highly respected, and their work could travel far through trade networks. Viking society valued festivals and celebrations. Seasonal events marked planting, harvest, and the solstices. The Altes, or sacrificial ceremonies, honored gods and ensured fertility, health, and prosperity. Music and poetry were central to entertainment. Skalds recited epic stories, preserved history, and conveyed moral lessons. Songs and chants often accompanied work, feasts, and rituals. Games, wrestling, and competitions tested strength, courage, and skill. Storytelling was more than entertainment. It educated, inspired, and reinforced social norms. Vikings placed great importance on honor and reputation within the community. Disputes were common, but law and assemblies called things helped to maintain order. Local chiefs and elders presided over legal matters, disputes, and land claims. Laws were strict but practical, emphasizing fairness, responsibility, and restitution. Family loyalty was paramount, and vengeance was sometimes considered an obligation. Marriage was both a personal and political alliance. It connected families, secured property, and strengthened community ties. Brides often brought dowries, while husbands promised protection and provision. Women could inherit land and property, making their role both respected and influential. Children were treasured, raised with care, and trained for future roles in society. Boys learned combat, sailing, and trade, while girls mastered household skills, craft, and farm work. Education was hands-on and practical, focusing on survival, skills, and cultural knowledge. Religion continued to permeate daily life, even as Christianity slowly spread. Old gods were honored through small household shrines and rituals. Symbols of protection, luck, and prosperity were common in homes and clothing. Seasonal festivals tied communities together and honored shared beliefs. Life was physically demanding but rich in tradition, culture, and communal support. Even ordinary Vikings lived with a sense of adventure, courage, and purpose. Community ties, honor, and family shaped their identity as much as their voyages and battles. In many ways, Their daily life prepared them for the challenges of exploration, trade, and warfare. The ordinary Viking was resilient, resourceful, and deeply connected to their land and people. Through both extraordinary feats and ordinary routines, the Viking culture thrived. It is in these everyday stories that we see the true heart of the Viking Age. While Viking raids and exploration are famous, their culture produced remarkable art and literature. Viking art was intricate, symbolic, and deeply connected to their beliefs. Wood, metal, bone, and stone were shaped into functional objects with beautiful designs. Ships, weapons, jewelry, and household items all bore decorative patterns. Dragons, serpents, and interlacing knots were common motifs in Viking carvings. These designs were not purely decorative. They held symbolic meanings. Dragons often symbolized strength, protection, and supernatural power. Serpents represented cycles of life, death, and rebirth. Viking jewelry was highly valued, made from silver, gold, and bronze. Brooches, arm rings, and pendants displayed wealth, status, and craftsmanship. Some pieces were traded across Europe and beyond, reflecting extensive networks. Runestones were another key element of Viking culture. These stones, often large and carved with runic inscriptions, commemorated people, events, or journeys. Runestones served as memorials, legal markers, or expressions of faith. They provide modern historians with valuable insight into Viking society. Vikings were also skilled storytellers. Sagas, epic poems, and oral traditions preserved history, legends, and moral lessons. The sagas recounted voyages, battles, family feuds, and the deeds of heroes and gods. Stories of Ragnar Lothbrok, Sigurd the Dragon Slayer, and other legendary figures remain famous today. Poetry was central to social and ceremonial life. Skalds, or court poets, composed verses to honor kings, warriors, and gods. Their work celebrated achievements and preserved memory in poetic form. Even in battle, poetry and song inspired courage and unity. Viking literature also preserved knowledge of law, customs, and philosophy. Oral transmission was essential, as few could read or write in early Viking society. Education often relied on memorization and storytelling. Yet, despite these oral traditions, Vikings were literate in runes, which allowed them to record key events. Some runes were magical or used for protection, while others were purely practical. Viking craftsmanship extended to shipbuilding, their most famous achievement. Longships were not only functional but also artistic, with carved prows and painted designs. These ships enabled exploration, trade, and conquest across vast distances. Viking settlements demonstrated architectural skill in urban planning. Even temporary encampments were carefully arranged to ensure efficiency and protection. Their cultural achievements were intertwined with daily life, war, and exploration. Art, literature, and craftsmanship reflected values, beliefs, and identity. Vikings left a legacy that influenced later European art and culture. In Normandy, England, and Ireland, Norse designs merged with local traditions. This fusion shaped medieval art, architecture, and metalwork. Viking sagas inspired future literature and storytelling techniques. Epic poetry, heroic tales, and mythological motifs appear in European literature for centuries. Even today, the influence of Viking art and storytelling can be seen in movies, video games, and literature. Their cultural achievements remind us that Vikings were more than warriors. They were creators, innovators, and preservers of history. Through art, poetry, and skilled craftsmanship, the Viking spirit endured far beyond the age of raids. This cultural legacy helped integrate Vikings into European society as rulers, traders, and citizens. It allowed their traditions to persist even as Christianity and centralized kingdoms replaced older ways. Viking achievements in navigation, shipbuilding, and craftsmanship influenced future explorers. Their longships inspired later naval designs and techniques used across Europe. Trade networks established by Vikings helped connect northern and southern Europe. Through these networks, ideas, goods, and culture spread rapidly. Vikings were pioneers in turning exploration into sustainable settlement. Their ability to adapt, innovate, and preserve knowledge allowed them to leave a lasting mark. Art, literature, and cultural expression were tools for identity, memory, and influence. Through sagas and runes, the Vikings spoke to generations far beyond their time. Every carved stone, every song, and every vessel carried a story of courage, curiosity, and creativity.